Welcome back, everyone, to the boat wreck graveyard. Today we're going to go on a fun exploration of the high water level mark on the sides of the harbor here and see what we can find. I also have a before and after photo I want to line up somewhere in the hills. We're going to try and do that today also. A lot to get to, and it's already getting hot out here, so we better get started. Are you ready? Let's go. We are back down here at Boulder Harbor checking on things, and nothing happening here because if you watch the channel, you already know the water level was coming up near the end of last year and at the start of this year. So everything they had gotten out back then, it kind of just ceased for right now because the water level has been rising. But that's not going to last long, as most of you all know. Like I said, I have a before and after photo some of you might even recognize that I've been using of historic Boulder Harbor here when the marina was way up at the top of the harbor. And you can see the high water line stretches all the way across these hills here, and I'm trying to determine where the water level was at way back then because it looks like it comes all the way up here. So I might have to go up near these hills, and I'll put the photo on screen right here now. There's a little rock in the bottom corner of the screen, but it's hard to find that rock because once you get up here, everything starts to just look like all the same rocks. So I think I might go up to this viewpoint here and see how it looks, and we'll try and line up the before and after photos. But look at everything blooming out here. It's like springtime for 2 weeks because, like I mentioned, the heat is coming already, and I will put a little infographic up on screen from the local news, but we are already getting up into the 90s and high 90s by the end of this week. When you're watching this video, we are going to have some record-setting days, it looks like, already. So this summer seems like it's going to be a doozy for us down here in the Southwest, not only with the heat, but of course because our reservoir levels out there are looking to be exceedingly low come this summer and possibly next year, unless that super El Nino comes to save us. But for right now, everything is just happy as can be. Look at the desert come to life, folks. And you'll notice here already, because the heat started, like I said, all of these blooms are already starting to die back, and unfortunately, soon it will be just a bunch of brown, dried out sticks and stems down here. But for now, look how nice it is. Let's go try and head up here towards the viewpoint. And I'm getting a little higher up in the harbor right now, but right here, you can almost see the difference in the rocks. And I'm gonna go up to that one because there's a real good line there, but it looks like we are almost at about the high water level mark. So I know a lot of times sitting at home for you folks, it's hard to get an idea of how much water is missing in Lake Mead, okay? We talk about the elevation and feet above sea level, but how does that translate to actual volume? Well, look at our perspective from about the top of the harbor here. There's Walter and the boat wreck graveyard. There's Lake Mead way out there, and you can see on our mounds the high water level. And the high water level line does stretch all the way from the top of the spire across the harbor and all the way right about where we're standing at this very moment. So Adventure Club member Dawn, she asked us to go on a high water line exploration. She wanted to know what is at the actual line where Lake Mead was at its highest level before it receded. Was there anything up here? Because the whole area that you're seeing here was basically the top of our harbor. And looking this direction would have all been a volume of water. And also in the historic photo, you'll notice when the spire is underwater, there were boats passing right over the saddle here too. So from what I understand in later years, the saddle that's stretching all the way out to the spire here, that was where people would come and cliff jump or water dive. You know, they'd come walk all the way out and they would jump off into Lake Mead here, because once it started receding, it was still up near the top of this saddle here. So you could come all the way out here, and there's even stairs over there. We call them the Stairs of Doom. I'll show them a little bit later in the video, but there's even stairs over there. So if you came to jump in the water, then you could just go back up the stairs. It was pretty neat, but this should give you an idea of how much volume was actually in Boulder Harbor right here. It's pretty wild. So I think we're almost about at the point where the shot was taken. We're going to go up a little bit higher, but I wanted to start here because this is about where the high water line changes from the oxidized rocks from the sun to the calcified rocks from that rich Colorado river water with all the minerals in it that leaves this staining. And you can see even on this one right here, these came tumbled down the hill a little bit, but look, you can even see on this one, that line right there. Isn't that pretty interesting? So our goal is going to be to follow this around. I'll start at the spire and then we'll try and get all the way up there. But like I said, it's getting hot out today, so a lot of big mission to tackle today. We'll see how much we can get done. Let's go line up that historic photo first. No snakes. Ooh, this is a nice vantage point up here. It is steep and loose and rocky though. Got to be really careful. Whew, look at that view. It looks like from up here, this may be about the same perspective that was in that historic photo. So on screen here, you're going to see the historic shot of Boulder Harbor, and then we will do a nice slow wipe and show you the after shot today. That is an immense volume of water missing from this harbor since the 80s. And we are quite far up on this cliffside here. You can see how small Walter is way down there with the boat wreck graveyard. Okay, well, we still have a long way to go. That was just the first step of this adventure. So better head on back down the hill, and I'm actually going to saddle back up in Walter, and we're going to go back up this way because I have to walk out the saddle. It's either that or I have to go up the stairs of doom, and I'm not doing that again, especially when it's hot outside. I'll show you a video once we get over in that area of us coming there before, but those aren't really fun. It's like a one-time experience. I'm good on that experience, don't need to do it again. We'll go all the way out to the saddle and head up the spire there. Back in the saddle again. All right, here we are on top of the saddle, and behind me right here you can see the huge empty Boulder Harbor, and on the other side of the saddle this way you can see Lake Mead, but it's way down there. So now from the before and after photo, you already know we would be underwater right here. Pretty wild, isn't it? Well, we got a long walk to get out to the spire from here still, and it's getting toasty. You might be able to see the heat radiating off the ground right here, but that's okay. This long walk will give me a chance to go over the Lake Mead water level and some other news that's been going on. If you watch our live updates, you already know that the lake level down here at Lake Mead hasn't been doing much. And that's, of course, because Lake Powell upstream has been quite active. We'll go over that in 1 second. But for right now, our water level down here at Lake Mead is still around 1,064 feet above sea level in elevation. So over the last few months, and even near the end of last year, it hasn't really fluctuated all that much. Well, why is that? Because Lake Powell upstream has basically been sacrificing itself in order to keep Lake Mead from dropping to critical levels also. But it can't do that for very much longer, which is why this summer is looking a little bit grim for us down here at Lake Mead, even though over the last few months, like you've seen on our channel with the videos that say Lake Mead rising, even though it hasn't seemed like the water level has been doing much or dropping drastically like we expected yet, it's coming, folks, just like the heat out here that you see right now. We are doing some record-setting heat numbers this week, it looks like, and we will be shooting up into the hundreds very shortly here, which is pretty early for us, even down here in the desert. So that's a little bit concerning for our summer outlook. And Lake Powell is already plunging going into summer. And that means that Lake Powell won't have much to give Lake Mead down here. So Lake Mead is going to start plunging too. Okay, so you see the relationship. We always point out they're like 2 cups of water. You can only have so much water in each cup. You have to decide where the water is going to go. Unfortunately, we're about out of water because the winter snowpack is not looking that good this year. So that's really the whole reason down here at Lake Mead we've been kind of stagnant, is because upstream at Lake Powell, they've been sacrificing that reservoir throughout the end of last year and into this year in order to keep Lake Mead here from also being in a dire state going into summer. And like I pointed out, contrary to what happened in 2022, they had actually decided to leave water in Lake Powell instead of send it down to Lake Mead to try and keep Lake Powell on life support. Well, now folks, we're kind of in the exact opposite situation like we covered with the Phil Mead first proposal. Now the USBR has been keeping Lake Mead on life support because they are worried about this summer. And meanwhile, Lake Powell upstream has suffered the consequences. So there's nothing that's going to replenish Lake Powell upstream or Lake Mead down here. It's just going to be like a controlled free fall this summer, basically, where we drop at both reservoirs and we hope we can get out the other side into next year and maybe hope for that super El Nino. We'll still continuing to make changes down here in the Southwest. We'll see what happens though, but I hope you enjoyed that before and after, because whew, look how far away it is. We were way over there on top of these hills. And it is, like I said, it's getting toasty out here, so I'm trying to get acclimated before the summer heat comes, but it looks like I am too late already because I am huffing and puffing out here. You can probably hear it on the video, but we're about halfway out to the Spire. And once again, from this point we're at, you can get an idea of just how much water was actually in this harbor. Look at the high water mark. Comes all the way to our Spire, and it would continue right here where the saddle drops off. So all this, folks, was underwater not even more than a couple decades ago. We've lost all this volume of water. So it will be interesting in the future, if someone is watching this in 5, 10, 20 years, it will be interesting to see, come up on the saddle and see, where's the water level at? Is it completely gone and even farther back towards the Colorado riverbed down here? Or might we see a volume of water fill this back up? Who knows? We are getting closer now, but before we get there, check out the Stairs of Doom. Woo! That is steep. This is what I was trying to point out when we were way over on the mound on that side. But we came and parked down here one time and we're hiking, and we decided to take the Stairs of Doom because they didn't look that bad to get up here as a shortcut, and it was not a shortcut. The Stairs of Doom. Remember the secret to the steps. 1 foot in front of the other.
You're so heavy.
And it was not a shortcut. It actually ended up being less work just to walk all the way up the saddle, because these are a lot worse than they look. But this is another example of infrastructure left over here at Lake Mead, a relic of the past. Like I was trying to point out, back in the day you could come right to this spot right here and the water would be right in front of us. Nice hot day, you just jump off, cool off right in there in the water, and then come over and walk back up the steps, tell your friends how cool it was, and then come back over here and do it again. Doesn't this look like a fun time though? I've had some folks tell me this is where they used to come cliff diving over the summer to cool off. Unfortunately, nowhere near to being useful at this point, unless you want a head full of rocks. And we're almost to the spire, so you can see the high water level mark stretching out over here. And we're gonna walk along that, see if we can find anything cool. Here we are at the base of the spire. And what's pretty neat, I think actually in the historic photo, you can also see the little path going up the mound there. But in that photo, right there is where the water level would have been. And you can see that little rock would be barely sticking out. Also visible in the historic photo, so that is pretty neat. So how about we walk around this way? We'll start heading around this way and we'll make a loop around and we'll see if we can end up back over there. I know the other side is pretty bad and rocky, but we'll see if we can do it. And then I'll show you a beautiful view from the top up here. All right, let's go. We'll start right over here. You can see more leftover infrastructure here, some steel cabling, a nice thick eyelet here, probably securing more of the marina here in the harbor. So the reason I came up here is because Adventure Club member Dawn asked what was up at the high water level here. And I told her, I've been up there before and there's not much going on. I don't think I'd really find anything interesting. And part of the reason is because you can see how these rocks are up here. Everything is just kind of crumbling away. So this top of the hill right here seems like even 20, 30 years ago, it'd be completely different now in the present day because all of this has crumbled away. So unfortunately, if there was anything neat up here, I feel like a lot of it may have just gotten buried by everything eroding away here down into the harbor. But we're still gonna go up here and walk around, see if we can find the actual point that was the high mark on this mound here. Let's go. No snakes, no snakes, no snakes. Look at that view, folks. And from here you can see our reference tires underwater. There's our crayons, well floating by now. There's tire 1, 2, and 3. And you can see the water still trying to make its way to the Ridge of the Dragon down there in Boulder Harbor. There's only a little strip, maybe about 100 feet, separating Boulder Harbor from Lake Mead at this point. But like I pointed out over the last several live streams and videos, I do not think this is going to fill up this year. I think we've seen about the highest this is going to get, and same with Lake Mead. And on Lake Mead's graph, you can actually see that we've already started to do a downtrend, getting ready to head into summer here. So like me and Mrs. Mojo tried to guess last video, we were trying to guess if the water level would go any higher. Well, it didn't really go any higher. That video that we were guessing was pretty much the highest that it looked like it's going to be for this year, and we are going to start our downtrend into the summer heat. So let's continue around this way, see if anything cool is on the other side of the spire. Hey, check this out. There was something cool up here. There's a little hangout cave. I don't want to stay under here too long because, like I pointed out, this rock is very unstable. This looks like it could collapse at any moment here, but this is a pretty neat little arch. And right here between these two rocks, once again, you can pretty much see the high water level mark. And what's interesting is it does look like where it started washing, it worked its way into the rock and fractured it and cracked off. But this lower one is all stained with minerals, and this top one, this is the top piece of the lower mound right here. So in that historic photo, that mound to the left side, we're on top of it right now. Isn't that neat? And the only thing that isn't neat is this is definitely snake country up here. All these nooks and crannies and little shaded caves in here. Wow, what a cool view from up here, huh? Oh, and look at that. There's another islet stuck into the rock down there. But yeah, this is the very top of the lower mound. And you can see it's all crumbling away down the hill here. Look at that little islet. And here's our line once again. We'd be about ankle deep right here. Now this is the side I've actually been on before, because there was a bunch of caves over here that looked interesting, and I came to explore them way back in the day before I even started YouTube or filming anything. And so I know that this side is very precarious to get over, so I'm going to turn off the GoPro here. I'm going to have to do some mountain goat climbing, and we'll meet you over there. Here's our line right here. See it? And not only does the actual rock flake off of this wall down into the harbor, but it does look like also the stuck-on mineralization does flake off too. So some of this will be flaked off like paint layers, and it'll leave the dark rock underneath again, like right there. Pretty interesting though. I'm sure the heat of the sun in the summer out here mixed with periodic rainstorms helps solidify that and chunk it off. Very harsh weather out here. Yeah, so you just got to be careful though. Never know what's in these hideouts. Well, this is even bigger caves back here. Wow. Lots of erosion going on. Boy, it is nice and cool in this spot right here, though. I kind of don't want to leave now. Lovely view. And here's our mark once again, still following it right on around. There's just not much up here at all. You would expect to maybe see boating or fishing artifacts like we do when we're down there, but there just doesn't seem to be much. And I think it's partly because of this terrain, but I also think the wild weather and the flooding, because you can see how much it erodes down here. I think if there was stuff up here from back in the day, by now a lot of the heavy storms would have washed it down into the harbor. And maybe that's why we find so much stuff down here in the harbor among all this sandy silt and mud. And for our regular channel viewers, I have a really good perspective of our 2 crayons out here and all the reference tires. So that's pretty crazy, isn't it? If you can just see that back right side of the reference tire here, it's out in the sun and it's dry. So there's your indication right there that the water has already started going down. Even though it's only been about a half a foot, it hasn't even been a full foot. Big changes happen fast here. Even a matter of a half a foot down here makes a huge difference way up here in this part of the lake. And this will be a perfect reference, a snapshot in time of what the water level looked like here before the summer drain started. So we will be coming back out here after the drop happens and seeing how drastic of a change we've experienced down here at Lake Mead this summer. But for right now, you can see everyone's just enjoying the nice weather, out recreating, kayaking, out at the beach down here, out boating, just enjoying a nice spring desert day. And I am going to have to go down farther. What I'm finding is the intact rock up here is very steep and unstable, and down here below the water line it seemed to have already crumbled away and is a little bit harder. So I'm going to go back down there before I twist an ankle. Okay, so I dropped back down below the high water level line here, and it seems a little bit more manageable terrain wise. So we'll see if we can get all the way around on this side, but we are about halfway around the spire right now. Definitely got some great views from this part of the lake. And it did look like from some of the historic photos that people would boat over here and hang out on the spire, because before you couldn't walk across the saddle like I just did. So you would actually have to come from the marina and come anchor out here, and then you can enjoy this beautiful view from the island. But just imagine if you were up here and the water level was up to this line. And I haven't found any artifacts or anything very interesting left over up here, but still great to get out, explore, get that sunshine and vitamin D, and do a little bit of documentation before the changes happen down here. And this right in front of us here is the old pump house for Boulder Harbor. You can see these big water pipes going all the way down here, and then they went underneath the ground, and there's 2 elbows sticking up right below that. There used to be a filter right there, and that would intake the water, and they would pull it up, and then they would send it over to the Boulder Harbor Marina to be used for the infrastructure there, like your restrooms and your water fountains and whatnot. But now this is obviously no longer in use. It's just sucking up gravel. So this has been decommissioned, and unfortunately the people who can't keep their hands to themselves have gone in there and ripped everything out, and you can see they've spray painted, but that's just what you get out here when things look abandoned. Let's go check it out though. Oh, this almost made me jump off the rock right there. My heart skipped a beat. Like, come on. The whole video I'm talking about watching out for snakes. Someone leaves their little rubber fuel hose up here. Yeah. Oh, look at that. We made it all the way around to the other side of the spire. And it is still quite a ways up here from where we're at. You can see there's a beacon up at the top here. We'll go over there in 1 second. And here you can see the water lines that are no longer in use. But to give you an idea of their age, look, they have them strapped together with some wood blocks and steel strapping there. And later on they encase it in concrete. We are basically right here at the high water line. So you would have water lapping right below us at the intake here. And you can see evidence of that right along the hillside that we just came along. Whew, look at how steep that was though. Good thing I didn't go up here. And like I said, people have came and ripped everything out of here already. Nothing in here anymore. And wrapping up on the other side of the spire, there's our high water line right there. All right, let's see if we can billy goat up to the top of the spire, and I will give you a lovely view before we wrap it up. And like I pointed out on the historic photo, you can actually see a path that goes up the hill. But when you're right up close on it here, you can't really see the light rocks anymore. A little harder to follow. I actually think this might be a game trail now. Well, it just keeps getting steeper the further up you go. totally worth it though. Beautiful. And check it out, you can even see the old basic water intake tower over the other ridge here. And from this perspective, I did have another panorama shot of Boulder Harbor when there was still some water in it right here. And it has changed again, because in that before and after, this was completely empty. But now we have some water in here. But I'll still pop up on the screen that before and after, because it gives a really good perspective of what this harbor looks like right now, and when there was actually enough water that boats could still use this channel. Of course, now we're just struggling to have the harbor connect with the lake, let alone boats be able to use it. That's a long way away from happening. And we're right at the top of the dragon. It goes all the way down to that first hump, down to the low point, then back up, and to the second spire on this side. Now, I know I said I was going to try and make it over to that one too, but it has gotten a little bit too toasty out here for me. I think I may have overestimated my capabilities in the warm weather. I need to get a little bit more acclimated so I can get back out there like we were last summer. So stay tuned. In a future episode, we're going to end up exploring that water line. And there's also something else that I want to see an update on and give you all an update on, but I'm not sure that it's exposed right now. I think we might need to drop about another 10 feet. So I'm going to wait to explore that side. We'll kill two birds with one stone over there. And for right now, we're just going to enjoy these views up here while I catch my breath and get some water. And then it's time to head back down the saddle. You can get a view of how far that distance actually is. And so this all would have been filled up with water right where we're standing here, down to our other low point right here, and all the way around the harbor. That is just an insane volume of water that we once had in this reservoir. And I'm not sure what this was, other than my best guess would be for a flagpole. Maybe you boaters can let me know down in the comments. And this beacon is obviously for something, but it looks like they've decommissioned it because there's not much of a chance of the water coming this high again. I suppose that's why they took down the actual light. When we first came out here, there was still a beacon on top, and now that's all gone. So boaters, down in the comments, let me know, what did they use this for? There must have been a flag here indicating something. Look at these views though. There's our current day Boulder Beach, like I pointed out from the top of the saddle. And what they have done is they keep moving it further and further down as the water level recedes. So traditionally, back in the day, in the heyday of Lake Mead's water level, the water would have been way up by the campground up there, where you see the grove of trees in the RV park. So those people actually on the RV park along the back wall there, they had nearly a lakefront view, and you can almost see where the vegetation cuts off, where the water level would have been. Isn't that wild? So over the years, as the water level recedes, they keep grading further and further down, and you can see this area was from the last 2 or 3 years. And that saved people from having to walk way down to the water line here, because they don't call it Boulder Beach for no reason. It is like walking on little boulders down there. It's not exactly comfortable, even with aqua socks on or anything like that. So there's a view of Boulder Beach. Lots of folks out today enjoying it, because in the next few days, like when I pop that infographic up on the screen with the weather, in the next few days it is starting to get miserable out here already. So I figured I better come out, get some landscape shots and a freeze frame of what we look like before the drop of summer hits us. And here's where we're at. Unfortunately, my phone is in the car, so I can't get a zoom shot right now, but you'll also be able to get a nice view of where our reference tires and the crayons are going to be, because I can almost guarantee that these are going to be on dry land soon if the USBR projections hold true over the summer. And what's interesting from way up here also is you can see the areas that were recently underwater and that are going to be exposed soon. They almost look like sandbars. There's one there and there's one here. And Offie was right up in one of these, but I think they actually did remove Offie. We'll have to double check when the water level recedes a bit. And that's also where we found the handgun in our previous video. So this area, because Lake Mead Marina was originally up here in this area, this traditionally had a ton of historic usage back in the day. So who knows what's in these further out sections that haven't been exposed yet. If we drop below 1,040 feet, all that new shoreline will have never have been explored before since the reservoir has been filled. So that's pretty exciting too. We'll see what we can find down in there. Hey, thanks for coming along today, everyone. I hope you're all doing well, having a great spring, getting ready for that summer heat to come. And we want to thank our Adventure Club members also, especially Staff Sergeant Dawn just got a promotion. Thank you, Dawn, for being a member for 1 year. That is incredible. We have a special announcement too coming up in regards to that. Staff Sergeant Sammy Head, thank you, buddy. And we have a new adventure member. I'm gonna have to go back and put them up on the chart too. I just saw they joined the other day, so we will get to you also. Thank you, everyone, for your likes, for your subscribes, for watching. No matter what you like, if it's the adventure episodes, if it's the Lake Mead updates, we're here for it all, and we're glad you are too. We will see you very shortly out there. Stay hydrated, stay happy.